Brand new season, brand new dawn for
Box.
and it's lights out and away we go.
Simply lovely. I was really enjoying that last
Welcome back to Box, where I am still very much playing catch up. This week we are talking Belgian Grand Prix. Now let's get into it. That was more like a quality performance. Worthy of Red Bull. Checo made it through to Q3 for the second week in a row, securing himself a P3 start on the second row of the grid. Max, well, he went back to taking pole this week, deciding he didn't like how the track looked from the other side of the front row last week. Things weren't so straightforward for them in the sprint shootout though. Mostly for Checo, who, while still making it through to SQ3, only managed P8. And Max wasn't letting anyone take his spot on pole for the sprint. Again, that's his spot. He's a bit like Sheldon Cooper, that's my spot. The sprint sure saw Checo crash out and fail to finish, while Max went on to claim his first sprint win of the season. Come Sunday afternoon though, this was the performance that the team had been screaming for. A Red Bull 1-2 once again, for the first time since Miami. While it is a positive, it also reiterated that Checo has had the ability and the car to do it the whole time. He just hasn't had the form to do so. But anywho, what does that matter? They got what they wanted in the end. On to Mercedes. I'd like to say that this was an improvement on their quality performance from last week, with both cars making it through to Q3, with Lewis securing a P4 start for the Grand Prix and Georgie in P8. Overall, positive signs and a great opportunity for them to bag some points in the championship. They backed this up in the sprint shootout, again with both cars through to SQ3, with Lewis in P7 and George rounding it out in P10. Come the sprint race though, Lewis wasn't able to make up any ground and maintained his P7, while George managed to gain a couple of places to round out the points in P8, giving the team the bonus points in their championship battle. But Sunday's where the bulk of the points are scored, and the team delivered once again, backing up from Sunday afternoon. Lewis maintained his P4 position, while George managed to gain 2 places to finish in P6. So a few similarities between the sprint and the Grand Prix this weekend, but most importantly, they scored points with both drivers in both races, and no one crashed and no one DNF'd. So that's positive. That's where we're at. Ferrari. The quali form has slightly returned. I don't want to get too cocky because they'll disappoint me again, but there are positive signs. Charles managed to get his car on the front row once again, starting in P2, while Carlos wasn't that far behind, bringing it up in P5. They maintained this slight return to form in the sprint shootout with the second row lockout, with Carlos starting in P3 and Charles in P4, setting them up for a potentially large bonus points haul. They did go backwards in the sprint though, with both drivers conceding a place, with Carlos finishing in P4 and Charles in P5. So while it was a backward slide, it wasn't as dramatic as some of their previous ones, and points were still scored by both. But Sunday saw them have 2 very different races. Charles went on to claim a minor podium position with P3, while Carlos crashed out of the race after coming together with Oscar Piastri on lap 1, turn 1, and sustained significant damage to his side pod. And while Oscar had the inside line and Carlos didn't give him room, he still managed to blame the rookie for his mistake. Come on, Carlos, really? Be better. But hey, Charles scored some points, and that's a positive. They scored points in the sprint, they scored points in the Grand Prix. So I'm gonna focus on that. Aston Martin. The streak continues, because I know you was wondering. Fernando once again making it through to Q3 with a P9 for Sunday's race, while Lance backed him up, securing himself a P10 with positive signs for points to be scored in the main race. The sprint shootout, however, it wasn't ideal, both being knocked out in SQ2, with Lance out-qualifying Fernando with a P14 and a P15 respectively, leaving them both with some work to do if they wanted to bag some of the additional points up for grabs this weekend. Unfortunately though, Fernando crashed out in the sprint and Lance finished in P11, so no points had there. But that's okay, because Sunday is where it's at, and boy did they deliver. Fernando gaining 4 places to finish in P5, and Lance gaining a position to finish in P9, securing another double points finish for the team, which is always helpful, and always good, and always positive. So I'd say it's a mixed weekend, but it was largely positive. A few negatives, but mostly positive. McLaren. Double papaya Q3 for the 3rd week in a row. This time, Oscar out-qualifying Lando with a P6 and P7 respectively, setting them up for a potentially great Grand Prix. Oscar continued to show Lando up this weekend, out-qualifying him in the sprint, with a P2 and a P5 respectively. And don't get me wrong, Lando's P5 is great, but a rookie in P2 next to the world champion? Ugh, phenomenal effort, especially in a car that struggled less than 6 weeks ago. I loved every minute of it. And the sprint provided the goods. Oscar claiming his first podium of the season, his first in F1, finishing in P2, and even leading the first laps in F1 in the process. But, as always, Max ruins everything good and wholesome in the world. Lando also had a decent drive, securing more points for himself and the team in P6. Come Sunday though, OP's luck seemingly ran out when he had that collision with Carlos Sainz and consequently had to retire from the race. Lando, however, went on to secure some points for the team after maintaining his P7 position. I'd say largely positive weekend for the team, if we just don't acknowledge OP's retirement on Sunday. That was all Carlos's fault. We're just not going to acknowledge that. On to Alpine. Do these guys just play reverse each week with every other week? Because once again, they've swapped positions from last week, with Gasly taking over the P12 position and Ocon in P15. They did have a better time in the sprint shootout though, with both drivers making it through to SQ3. Gasly out-qualifying his teammate for the second time this weekend in P6 and Ocon in P9. The sprint race itself saw Gasly gain 3 places to grab his first podium of the season with a P3 finish, while his teammate narrowly missed out on the points after finishing in P9. Because remember, points only go to P8 in the sprint. The roles again flipped on Sunday, again with the reverse card, with Ocon being the one to bring home the points with a P8 finish after making up 7 positions, while Gasly only made up 1, finishing just outside of the points in P11. But hey, at least they both finished the race, and that's something. It's a positive, it's an improvement, and we'll take it. Haas. It was a rare occasion this weekend at Haas. K-Mag out-qualifying Hulk for the first time since Miami, with a P13 and a P20 respectively. This continued in the sprint, however. Both were knocked out in SQ1 on this occasion, with K-Mag in P18 and Hulk in P20 once again. But it was positive signs in the sprint, with both drivers making up some ground, K-Mag making up 4 places to finish in P14, and Hulk made up 3 to finish in P17. The status quo remained the same in the GP, with K-Mag finishing ahead of his teammate in P15 and P18 respectively. I think it's safe to say that this was not a track that Hulk liked, nor did he excel at. After all, it was probably his worst performance of the season to date, if that's even possible. But hey, they both finished the race, so props to them. Williams. Once again, both drivers were knocked out in Q1, with Albon out-qualifying Logan yet again, with a P16 and P18 respectively. Both drivers managed to make it to SQ2, where Albon again outqualified Logan with a P12 and a P13 respectively. Not bad, an improvement on their Grand Prix qualifying, so props to them. Albonneau managed to maintain his P12 throughout the sprint race, but Logan, he dropped 3 places to finish in P16. So, not the race he was hoping for. Steps forward were taken on Sunday though, with both drivers making positional gains. Alex made up 2 to finish in P14, while Logan made up 1 to finish in P17. It may not seem like a lot, but it is a step in the right direction, and hopefully it restores some of his confidence heading into the summer break and the rest of the season. It's the little things sometimes. Gotta focus on the little things, the positives. Alfa Romeo. It's a standard weekend, really. Zhou knocked out in Q1 with P17. Valtteri made it to Q2, couldn't get any higher to P14. But are we really surprised at this point? No, I'm not. You might be, but I'm not. I'd like to say that the sprint shootout was better, but I'd be lying if I did. And that's not what we're about here at BoxBox. Both drivers were knocked out in SQ1. Zhou in P19, Valtteri in P17. They made some moves in the sprint, with Valtteri making up 4 places for a P13 finish, and Zhou also making up 4 places for a P15 finish. Again, moves were made on Sunday, but not enough and no points were scored once again. Valtteri gained 2 places to finish in P12, while Zhou made up 3 to finish in P14. So nothing exciting there. And honestly, another weekend where I don't think I saw them at all. So, yeah. On to AlphaTauri. It's Danny Ric's second week back in the car, and quali was not his friend. He was knocked out in Q1 after failing to get any higher than P19. In his defense, it is his second week back. He's been out of action for a while. He's still learning the car, and I mean, Spa isn't exactly an easy track to come back to. So, Yuki, again out qualifying his teammate, making it through to Q2, and narrowly missing out on Q3 after qualifying P11. The sprint shootout did see the roles reverse, with DR getting the one up on his teammate and getting into SQ2 and qualifying in P11, whereas unfortunately Yuki was knocked out in SQ1 with a P16. No points were to be had in the sprint though, unfortunately, with Danny missing out by a couple of places after finishing in P10. If only it was a Grand Prix. And Yuki's sprint wasn't great, as he lost a couple of places to finish in P18. Yuki was redeemed on Sunday though, being the only member of the team to score points, finishing in P10, while DR was only able to make up about 3 positions to finish in P16. Overall, it was a rough weekend for the Red Bull Junior team, but they came away with points and some positives, and no one crashed out. So that's something. That's a positive. Focusing on the positives. Thank you for watching. This has been another episode of BoxBox. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, subscribe, all of the fun things, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, guys.